first instalment. Today, I'm very proud to welcome our first guest, Ararat Ameen, another fresher here at Jesus. We're going to be talking about some of the highs and lows, the best bits and worst bits of a once-in-a-lifetime experience that is Oxford's first term. So, Ararat, first question. What do you think are the best bits and the worst bits of your first term?
Let's see. I would say that the best bit of my first term was actually discovering and making the most of the various opportunities that are available to you. Loads of talks, loads of interesting kind of seminars, meetings between academics. Those were quite cool to go to. Choir, starting singing for Keble's chapel choir. That's pretty special. We do quite a few services a week, 3 services exactly a week, and it's amazing to be pushed more than I've ever been before musically. Meeting people who are really, really, really into their subject, I think, was quite refreshing. Even at A-level kind of, and GCSE, you go through quite a lot of school, and you just mechanically go through the motions, never really feeling the passion for your subject, or never meeting other people who are just as passionate as you are about your subject as they are about their subject. So that's pretty special.
So you're very passionate about classics then?
I've had my ups and downs. I think the bits that I am passionate about classics, they will come in my 3rd and 4th year, I'd say, after I do my first set of exams, which were classicists, they're called mods. I'm not the biggest fan of literature, so I'm slightly struggling with that at the moment, just struggling to be interested in it. But eventually, once I get to pick my kind of modules for my finals, it will, a lot more exciting and the things I'm actually interested in. Not that I'm not interested in what I'm doing now. There's a lot of it's very, 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 very fascinating, but not quite the sweet spot for me. And then worst bit, I would say, actually the timing. You don't have people telling you where to go, where you need to be at a certain time. You don't have a timetable telling you to do that. You don't get given one. It's up to you to kind of be a grown-up, be independent, and figure out where you need to be, when you need to be there. And getting your work done on time, particularly essays. So for most humanities students, you'll have at least 1 essay a week. As a classicist, I get various translations and grammar exercises that I need to do. Get a short grammar test each week as well. And sometimes the work does pile up on top of each other, and if you're not careful, then you will end up having to pull an all-nighter, which isn't the best thing.
I've been there.
Yeah, I was there last week. So yeah, that's what I would say. Just getting the timing right. Otherwise, you will suffer, and you will go to the lecture the next day, or your tute the next day, falling asleep, half asleep.
Yeah, I do find sometimes that you can never really know if you're falling behind until it's almost too late, because there's certain things that you have to do where there's nothing, they don't really check up on you.
Yeah, that's really true. Especially, that's particularly true with classics, actually. There's so much of it that you need to do independently by yourself. And I only came to this realisation last week, actually, is that I can't, it's easy to say I'm going to leave it to the vacation, but actually you need to get the brunt of the work. Yeah, you need to get the brunt of the work done now, so that in the vacation you're not learning it, but going over it and solidifying it. There's a lot of independent work that needs to be done, and I myself am not too great at that. I'm still trying to get to grips with that, but yeah.
Any highs or lows with the choir? Is there any sort of big events when you first got into it that really shone out for you? What got you into it in the first place?
So what got me into choral singing in particular was we had an amazing director of music at my secondary school. I went to the West London Free School, which is in West London, funnily enough.
Thought so.
Yeah, and he kind of opened my eyes to choral music, Renaissance music, chapel choir, and in fact he recommended that I apply for Keble's chapel choir, audition there rather. And I would say kind of the best bits of the choir last term was we actually did 2 BBC Radio 3 recordings, which was pretty special. Really hard
in your
work.
first term.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Really, really cool. Very, very blessed to have had the opportunity to do that. We've actually got one of the recordings currently on BBC Sounds, I think. Our second recording that was broadcast on Wednesday.
Link in description.
Yeah, but it was hard work actually. We had to have a lot of rehearsals that week, especially when we did the 2 recordings. Week 6, that was probably the toughest week of last term because all the work just piled up, all my academic work and then all my extracurricular work. It all just happened to pile up at the same time, the same week, and yeah, very, very stressful, but very much worth it, I'd say.
So moving on, I'd quite like to ask you about your potentially unique position where you're the social secretary of Jesus, but you don't even drink. So a lot of people around Oxford, a lot of publications I've come across have said that there's quite a toxic drinking culture here, and I for one do quite agree with this, but I'd love to hear your unique perspective on this.
I think speaking as a non-drinker and having friends in other universities who are drinkers, and having friends in Oxford, funnily enough, who drink, I don't think that Oxford is too unique in the in its the kind of the centrality of drinking to social events. I think that's kind of less a symptom of the way Oxford works, but more a product of kind of what most people as young adults are like. There are quite a few events in which kind of the drink is there, ready and part and parcel of the event. Even when you go to dinner, when you go to a formal hall, which is kind of the second sitting of dinner that happens in college, you have the wine glass set up for you, and that's kind of that's just a tradition. So yeah, there's that to it, and other events such as crew dates. I'm sure this happens in other places as well, but we've got this thing called shoeing, where you basically all chant that someone needs to drink out of their shoe.
That sounds horrendous.
I think one of the good things is that if you don't want to do it, you don't do it.
And is that always accepted? Are there some circles where that is more the rule and some where it isn't?
I would imagine there are some where it's probably not accepted where you do that. I myself haven't come across any of those circles. I haven't been in those particular groups. I can't say I've been to many crew dates myself either. And you do get, as a non-drinker, you shoe out of you drink water out of your shoe, is the idea.
Have you ever drank water out of your shoe?
No. No, I haven't. Neither have I been asked, so yeah. But there's that. I think as it is possible to be a non-drinker in a space where drink is readily available, but I myself don't tend to go to places with the objective to drink. So I think crew dates are like that. It's a dinner, and then the aim is you drink a lot, you play a lot of drinking games. So which is why I don't go to crew dates most of the time. But yeah.
Fair enough. So moving on once again, could I ask for any bright-eyed young academics looking for applying to Oxford, maybe thinking about the interviewing process, maybe apprehensive about what their first term will be like? Would you have any advice for these people?
I think the first thing I would say is start thinking about it in year 12 and make sure you do your mocks in the summer of year 12 or your AS exams for those who are doing AS, with the eye to applying for university with a good set of either predicted grades or actual grades. What I would say is look up your course to see if there is an exam that you need to take at any points during the application process. And I would say start preparing for that exam from kind of halfway through the summer between year 12 and year 13. You'll have to strategize for that. It'll be quite different to what you're used to doing at A level, which is what I found when I did the CAT, which is the classical aptitude test. Quite a lot harder than what I was doing at A level actually at the time. The nature of these exams is and they'll tell you this in interview as well, is to see how you think. So give as much information as you possibly can. Answer as much of it as you possibly can. I remember in my CAT exam there was a line which, the vocabulary of which I had no idea what it was on about, but I knew how it grammatically fit together, and so I kind of inserted the words in Latin in the correct order and said, it kind of had this mixture of Latin and English in a sentence to show that I knew what was happening. I just couldn't translate it necessarily. That's a really good idea. Go through the past papers. What else would I say? I would say quite a few people ask about extracurricular activities. For Oxford, I didn't get asked about extracurricular activities once in my interviews. I had 4 interviews, and yeah, no one seemed to care.
So don't go outside.
Do go outside, get some fresh air. But it's don't feel like you have to do anything extraordinary to put onto your personal statement with regards to extracurricular activities. You get interviewed on your subject based on your relationship with your subject and the aptitude you have for your subject. What else would I say? Read around your subject. And also engage in conversation with your peers and your tutors especially, or your teachers at school, just to kind of get yourself familiarise yourself with talking about your subject passionately with other people, which is essentially what you'll have to do at interview, except you get asked a lot harder questions. But yeah, that's probably the advice that I'd give.
So following on from the Latin vein, do you think if for whatever reason, let's say everyone decided that they now know Latin, or you went time travelling or something like that, how long do you think it would take you to actually pick up speaking the language?
How long it would actually take you to pick up speaking the language? That's well, the boring answer to that is it depends on who you are as a person, how quickly you pick up languages.
What about you?
I am not the best listener, so I learn languages best through paper, which is why I'm studying ancient languages, because that's how you pick those up. But I guess if you, like in any situation, if that was the only language you would speak in, I would imagine after 3 months on average, you'd be fluent in that language. If that was the only means of communication you had, because you'd be forced to communicate somehow, and then you'd eventually pick it up. There is actually a school in Rome that teaches exclusively in Latin. It's a boarding school, and they have summer programs for people from all over the world go there, and it's just this intensive Latin course. I think an ancient Greek equivalent exists as well. I hope to be going to the Latin one at some point during my degree. But yeah, I think it's quite funny because a lot of the Latin that we learn is the Latin that's used in very formal Latin. It would be the equivalent of, perhaps not quite the same equivalent, but not too dissimilar to learning English through, I guess, through various parliamentary speeches, through various speeches in the law courts. through kind of history, annals that have been written, um, through plays. It's a slightly artificial way of learning a language, but it gives us, but the way in which we learn it gives us access to that literature and some of the literature of the golden age of ancient Rome, Greece as well. Yeah.
Well, Latin at Oxford is something for you to aspire to. So, I'm afraid we're just running out of time, so we might have to be wrapping up this episode now. Is there anything you might like to add?
Just go for it, I'd say. Yeah, don't worry about. There are a lot of people who say, "Oh, I don't think I'll get in, but I'll apply anyway." Don't even think about your prospects and your chances of actually getting in. I would just say apply, and yeah, that's it. That's my best advice.
That's 100% great advice. If you don't make it, well, at least you've made it in trying to make it. So we're wrapping up our episode now. Please, you're all on YouTube. I assume you know the sort of thing that you do underneath to stay updated with my videos. Again, if you don't want to do this, come back here next week. It'll be the time of your life once again, and every subscriber